It's Chatter on Books, and if you think this introduction is boring, you try writing the copy. I'm Jamie McIntyre. Here's Torie Clark.
This is Chatter on Fostering Pets, ladies and gentlemen. Lauren Larson is helping us out tonight. She's got the hands on the wheel for the important work because Claude is doing some other things, important things. Thank you. But we're talking about fostering pets, which is a wonderful thing. Absolutely wonderful. Okay. Erica, hang in there with us for a few minutes, okay? But jump in when we do the pitch with Jeffrey and the folks from Wonderland. Jump in. David, what town are you in?
I have no idea. I'm somewhere on I-35. I don't know where I am.
Oh, God bless you for doing this. Okay, we go. So Chatter on Books to start, everybody, but we got to do our David Aldrich moment. David, I don't know if you can see this. Hold on, I got to click out of something. I don't know when, if ever, a basketball player was on the cover of the New Yorker. Yeah. This is the only subscription my husband lets me have anymore, by the way. The Knicks. That's the story, right?
It is in New York.
Yeah. Kind of want them to lose, to be perfectly honest.
I don't really care. I have no affiliation.
Well, yeah, that's because you're a professional.
Sometimes. Although David Remnick, who's the editor of the New Yorker, you know what his first job was?
What was it?
He was the beat writer for the Washington Bullets for the Washington Post.
Wow.
Yes. I am in a long line of former Bullets beat writers.
That's pretty cool. Good training. Have you heard this thing? You wouldn't care because you didn't work at the Washington Star, where I did. You worked at the Washington Post.
Love the Star. Loved it.
Did you deliver the Star at some point? Okay, somebody we know did. So there are two outfits now. This is Chatter on the DMV, everybody. Two outfits now who are launching newspapers, and they're fighting over the name The Star.
Oh,
so all the dinosaurs who worked at the Washington Star, and I was 4 when I worked there, are all, they're texting and emailing and such like, there was only one star. Those kinds of things. Okay. Hey, Lauren, so my screen, I can't tell. Do we have one of the folks from Wonderland on? Let me see. Who's on? Oh, hi, Gayle. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, it's good to be back on the show.
If people could see Gayle's back, Gayle from Wonderland Books. No, this really speaks to just what it takes to run an independent bookstore. It's a lot of stuff. There's a lot going on, right?
This is like, and you're not even really seeing, this is like our super glamorous back office.
Nice.
It's really
nice.
This is like where all the overstock stuff goes.
That's the real stuff.
Makes it out to the floor.
So Gayle is with us from Wonderland Books in Bethesda, Maryland, part of the DMV. She's going to talk about her wonderful nominated author, Jeffrey Katz. But Gayle, the last time we were there with you in person at Wonderland, it was Scott Price, right? And his book, The American Game.
Yes, and we also had DeMaurice Smith. Was that
right? D. Smith. D. Smith. We did around the corner. D. Smith came to Scott Price.
Oh, that was at Chatter.
And then we did Dee's book at Caddy's.
That's right.
Shockingly, Gayle, there was a lot more drinking going on. There was a lot more drinking. I saw him a couple of weeks ago up in Long Island. But so you're a year and a half into the opening, correct?
Correct. Yep.
How's it going?
It's going great. It's really, it just each month gets better. We've had just some really, really busy weekends, and even our weekdays are really busy. Bethesda is a great reading community, and they support us every step of the way. And they've been, very enthusiastic, and they come out to our events and they buy books, and it's really been fantastic. So everything's going great.
I drive by there a lot. I traded emails with Gayle last week about this and said my mother-in-law is in a lovely assisted living facility around the corner, and they've been to the bookstore, which is great. But I drive by fairly often, and there always seems to be traffic, which is fantastic.
Yeah. It's really rare that we're quiet, which is fantastic. It's
great.
New normal here is just sort of a constant.
Annie, the last time I think we asked you about this, I said, would you do anything differently if you're going to redo the start of an independent bookstore again? And you had said maybe we wanted more space. Maybe we need more space than we have. But a year and a half in, are you thinking, boy, if we could do this over, or are there changes, improvements you want to make?
No, I mean, it would probably be the same answer. It would be
Yeah,
that it'd be nice to have more space in here, but I can't think of anything that I wish we had done differently. I mean, the
that's great.
location is amazing and just, a lot of the things we implemented. I wish we had maybe launched our book clubs a little bit earlier because they've
Uh-huh.
been a real big success and we waited until this January to do it. But I don't think we would change a thing.
That's great. Give us the depth and breadth of the book clubs, the diversity of your
Oh,
book clubs.
yeah. So I think we just launched our seventh or eighth book club. So some of the book clubs have been started by people that don't work for the store. They just were enthusiasts. And one was an existing book club. It was a mystery thriller book club that in Montgomery County, and they now meet with us. And then three of the book clubs here are run by booksellers here in the store. Literary fiction, my partner Amy and I do that one.
Uh-huh.
Memoir book club, we do that one as well. We have a bookseller here who does a romantasy book club. We have a historical fiction book club and a teen book club, and we just launched a sci-fi book club.
That's
So
great.
yeah, it's really nice because it draws together, a nice big diverse group of people who don't know each other, but they're all united by a common passion around a particular genre. And we do them about every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on, some meet more frequently than others. But
Sure.
they've really been a nice extension of the store, and they
That's
meet
great.
after hours. Yeah,
That's great. And you never sleep.
never
Okay.
sleep.
10-second reminder on the pitch. This is our writing competition. Yes, the world has many, many, many writing competitions. The great controversy of writing competitions these days seems to be that some books that win are found to be fueled by AI, which is fascinating. But ours, we have about a dozen independent bookstores across the country that are nominating authors from their region, loosely defined, with a book out this year. So Gayle, introduce us to Jeffrey Katz and his book and why you picked him.
Well, we'd be thrilled to do this. So Jeffrey Katz has been a bookseller at Wonderland since the day we opened in December 2024. And he came out with a book in January of this year that has been very well received among Wonderland's customers and far beyond. So
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey's book is called Unsettled Ground, Reflections on Germany's Attempts to Make Amends. And in Unsettled Ground, Jeffrey looks at post-war Germany's efforts to reconcile what happened there during the Holocaust, which he explores when he returns to his ancestors' homeland, guided by Germans when he was there. We were thrilled to help Jeffrey launch his book here at the store, and we've been really happy to see his great success since then with events and panels and book fairs that he's done all over the country. It was an easy pick when you asked us to nominate a book to pick Jeffrey's book, Unsettled Ground, which is powerful and beautifully written.
Awesome. Might be the best nomination yet.
Oh, I
Unclear
love
who's
that.
going to win this, but that might be the best articulated nomination yet.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, congratulations.
Well, thank you. Although the journalist in me wishes you had pressed Gayle just a little bit more on that bigger bookstore. I want to hear her to say a move is imminent, but maybe you can get it out of her yet.
We can get next time she comes on. So
Good.
Jeffrey, you're a serial
10-year
journalist.
lease, Jeffrey. 10-year lease.
Jeffrey, you're a serial journalist. You have written, reported, done a lot of work in this space before. Tell us about this piece of work, Unsettled Ground. And, the horrible thing everybody from Washington does is they make it about them, but I'll do 5 seconds. I worked for a German company and I spent a lot of time in Germany for about 5 years, 6 years. It is very unsettled ground.
Yeah.
But what got you to this book and what did you learn? What were your takeaways that you hadn't had before because you've been in this space a lot?
Good. So you're going to give me a whole hour for my answer?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you. I would first say one of the challenges for a longtime journalist to write a book and where he is a part of it is to put yourself in it, because so much of mainstream journalism is to keep yourself out of it. So I have to admit that that was a bit of a struggle for me. The book, I hope, exists on a number of different levels. To some extent, it's a story of finding my family's roots in Germany when I didn't get that from my parents. But that's a story that has been told in a lot of different ways. What I hope makes this book different is that it's about the remembrance culture in Germany, where a post-war generation courageously broke through 4 decades of silence and denial and began asking the rude and awkward questions of their parents and grandparents and got at the truth. And then I also hope on another level, this story is about remembrance. It's about taking responsibility, even for actions that you and your generations were not responsible for, and then reconciling. And so, although it's a lot about Germany, there are a lot of echoes about what is and isn't happening in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, going back to getting to know a lot of people very, very well. And I worked with a lot of people who were in their 40s and 50s, and their parents and sometimes grandparents were alive and still living in Germany, and they clearly had been a part of it. They had in some way supported, enabled, you'd know the words better than I do, what the Nazis were doing. And one of the things that what I've been able to read about your book thus far is the bravery of those people who said, we have to ask those hard questions. We have to admit these things. How do you think they're doing? I've ordered the book. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I've ordered it. But how do you think they're doing?
It's mixed. Personally, I'm inspired by these people. You're right. It took a lot of courage in the face of threats and denial, and that's particularly true in small towns. And my family, both my mother's side, but particularly my father's side, was from a small town, and it took much courage and sort of a reaching across from non-Jewish Germans to children of descendants like me. And I think a lot of them, I think, are pleased with the successes they've had. And I think some of them have been crushed by what's happened over the last few years, because they haven't eradicated anti-Semitism. They haven't eradicated hatred amongst groups. And one of the things that, as I try to reconcile myself about what they've done, is to understand, as I think Brian Stevenson has mentioned, is that the work is never done. It's Pollyannish to think that we're going to be able to end hate in a generation against all groups. And that's why I think in some ways my book is a reflection on memory and on history and what we do with it.
Mm-hmm. Was it hard for you personally?
In terms of dealing with my own family's history, look, when I was younger, my parents didn't want to talk about it. And particularly for my father, who escaped and lost almost all of his family, he didn't want to bestow that trauma on his children, and he didn't want to relive it until, as a young journalist, I kind of forced him to. I felt driven to do this story for a couple of reasons. I wanted to get at the truth of what happened to my family, and I now know more about that than, say, my dad did when he died 20-some years ago. And I felt I had a responsibility to the post-war Germans, the baby boomers, and now some of them younger, my peers, who have done such a selfless job to restore the history. And again, there's so many echoes about what hasn't happened in this country.
Yeah. Okay, I've got one more question, and then David and Erica, if you've got something for Jeffrey. So one of the greatest things that came out of Steven Spielberg, the movie, incredible, but when he was doing Schindler's List, they interviewed tons of people and Holocaust survivors. And he realized a lot of them were quite old and they were dying off. He goes, we need to get their stories down. So he started this amazing project, which I think is now at USC San Diego in their archives. But he started this incredible collection of oral histories, video oral histories of people who were survivors. And one thing he learned very, very quickly, yes, they were willing to talk about what happened and how they survived. But they said, I don't want my family, I don't want my friends thinking that is everything about me. And so the interviews almost very consistently were always in thirds. What their life was like before, what their life was like when they were in a concentration camp, and what their life was like afterwards. But again, incredible bravery for them to down.
I completely agree with that. My book is not about the camps. It's not primarily about the Holocaust itself. It's about what my family and what others experienced both before and now after. But I do want to there is one connection to Schindler's List in my book, and it shows the differences, the passing of a baton between generations. My wife and I are at the old Jewish cemetery in Augsburg. We see a lot of stones on a tombstone on one of the grave sites there, which is a way of showing respect in Judaism. And one of the people who was there to show us the cemetery said, "Do you know who that was? Metek Pemper." And I said, "I had no idea." Well, Metek Pemper, as it turns out, typed up Schindler's List. That name is largely lost to history because in the movie, it consolidated two people, Yitzhak Stern and Metek Pemper. So that was really striking. Wow. The next day, we have coffee with the non-Jewish head of the Jewish Museum in Augsburg. And oh, by the way, she got started in this as a young person in Augsburg because she heard one of Metek Pemper's talks. She met with him as a 12-year-old and has a picture of him sitting on her desk in the Jewish Museum. So that shows you this connection amongst the generations.
That is great. David, Erica?
So, Jeffrey, what is applicable to our country and our current situation based on what you're reporting unearthed?
I would say that one of the late German chancellors talked about the grace of late birth, that if you were born after World War II, you didn't have to take responsibility for the atrocities that occurred before then. And I mean, again, the what's happening in this country seems to be a whitewashing of history. And so I think the first thing is taking a solemn remembrance, taking responsibility for it, and then achieving some reconciliation. Another thing that has happened in Germany and throughout Europe is these 100,000 Stolpersteine, these stumbling stones that are memorials for at the last place where people lived voluntarily before they were deported. I have a number of family members who have this Stolpersteine. Imagine what it would be like in this country to have memorials to African Americans, to Native Americans, not just at certain museums, which we have, but where these people lived. And that, I think, is one thing that could have a certain resonance in this country.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Erica?
I'm curious about where your research started. If you weren't speaking, if your father wasn't able to speak about this painful history, how did you even begin this momentous project?
Well, my father didn't talk about it initially, but then I became a young journalist in my early 20s. I was covering Cuban refugees in Arkansas where I was working at the time. I said I was very taken by their stories. He said, well, he was a refugee. And so then he sat down and talked to me about it. But I did get information from him and some from my mother. But I also got a lot of information from these incredible groups that are part of the remembrance movement in the places where my family lived. And an incredible array of documents are now available online where it takes a lot of searching and a lot of digging. And that's where the journalism background helped. And I just kept digging until I got the answers. So I was able to piece that all together. And I would say also, nothing was more important than actually being there, going there and standing where my family lived and meeting the people of the remembrance movement.
It sounds fabulous. Again, I've ordered it. It's on the way. Jeffrey, thank you for all your work, but thank you for writing this book. Gayle, thank you for nominating them. Fabulous. Wonderful. And we'll be just chugging along with the pitch this summer. And we're going to have 4 finalists in the fall, and late fall, we'll announce a winner. It should be great. But Jeffrey, thank you so much. Great to meet you. Great to see you.
Great.
Gayle, keep doing great stuff at the bookstore.
And
thank you so much.
Thanks to all of you for the honor.
Absolutely. It looks really good. I read as much as I could online about it and saw some of the reviews. It looks really, really good and incredibly hard. Incredibly hard. Okay. Erica, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me. Jeffrey was so fascinating that I forgot that I was required to speak about my own book next.
Well, and we've done, what have we done, Dave? 5 or 6 of these nominations, I guess.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
And I guess I was going to say surprisingly, but I shouldn't be surprised. I've gotten a couple of emails from nominating stores going, you seem to talk to that author a little bit longer than you talk to our author.
Oh.
Wow. Whoa. Okay. So we just talked a lot to Jeffrey, but that's
Oh my
okay.
goodness, challenge extended there.
Exactly. Okay, Erica, I love the book, The Museum of Unusual Occurrence. I know a lot about A Business Guide to the Afterlife poetry. I did not spend as much time on that. So we're going to spend most of our time on the Museum of Unusual Occurrence. But I've started to detect a trend. I went back and looked at other times you've been on the show, and we've talked to you about Snake, an essay collection, famous in Cedarville, Hollywood murder mystery, Hollow Bones, this charismatic pastor in a church that has snake rituals. There's a certain probing of the darker side of life that you embrace. And those of you who can't see Erica on News Channel 8, as we like to say, does not look like the kind of person that would delve into the darker side of life. But I think I know where this comes from, Erica, but in your own words, where does this probing of the darker side come from?
I've always been interested in Gothic stories. I grew up in a very rural, small town. My house very much seemed haunted. We would hear children's laughter from rooms where there were no children. We would hear footsteps in hallways where there were no people. Glass shattering in the middle of the night. So a lot of kind of unexplained events in my childhood that were just taken for granted. So from a very early age, I was making up stories. I was telling stories. One of my favorite memories of my grandmother is sitting on her back porch in a porch swing. I would tell these very dark stories about mythological beasts and ghosts haunting people. And then I would
At a very young age.
At a very young age, yeah. And I would always end by saying, and then they lived happily ever after. And my grandmother would cackle. She thought that this was, so funny. But actually, I feel like my books kind of have that trajectory as well, that I really do like for my characters to have hope. I don't enjoy reading hopeless books. And so even when I'm writing darker material, I want my characters to have hope for their futures. So in some ways, I'm still kind of searching for that happily ever after, even though you're right. I do have these Gothic tendencies.
Oh, great. Well, the Museum of Unusual Occurrence, when I started reading it, and it became sit down twice and don't stop till I was done, because it's really good. I thought, I love Carl Hiaasen. I love Carl Hiaasen. I think he's great. Florida, I'm all in, those kinds of things. But there's a certain hopelessness in a lot of Carl Hiaasen. And there definitely is hope. Okay, so I'll do the snapshot. We got a woman who runs a museum of oddities in a town in Florida. And it's based loosely, who knew there was a real town in Florida? How do you say it? Cassadaga?
Cassadaga, I believe.
Cassadaga, which calls itself the psychic capital of the world. So it's based loosely on that. But you got this woman, she's youngish. She's raising her younger sister because the father died. The mother is quite eccentric and has gone off somewhere finding boyfriends. And she's chugging along, trying to keep the museum going, trying to take care of her younger sister, and a dead body shows up. I have to be very careful not to give too much away, but a dead body shows up in her museum. This is absolutely spectacular. So in another life, would you want to be the curator of a museum of oddities like this? And I love these places, by the way.
100%, yes. 100%. Absolutely. It's funny because I said this in an event recently and someone in the audience kind of called out and was like, why don't you open one? And now I can't stop thinking about it. Maybe this is my retirement future, that when I'm no longer writing books, maybe I can start to collect my oddities. So if you have any, do you all have some oddities at home? Do you have a taxidermy mermaid or a calcified liver, anything hanging around that I can have?
I'll call you tomorrow and tell you something. It's something that really should not be shared.
Look in the attic.
Look in the attic, please do, David.
Not be shared with a broader audience. But we did have neighbors down the street who collected. They were not hunters, but they collected every taxidermied, if that's a word, animal on the planet. Hundreds, and pretty creepy because they're just heads absolutely everywhere. Okay, what is it about Florida? Come on. Florida man. Isn't that a thing?
I know. Yeah. I think it's the heat. I lived in Florida for about a year. I lived in Gainesville, which is not too far from Cassadaga. And I think that there's something, it teems with life there. It teems with life. There's you've got the natural springs, you've got the beautiful oceans, and then you have all of these southern small towns. So it really has the full spectrum of characters down there in Florida.
Yeah, you get 100 miles from Miami and it's a completely different scene.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
Very, very different.
very, very different. And, I
Okay.
think Carl Hyacin does capture that eccentricity as well. I hadn't thought about him being a little bit hopeless, but he does have that
I don't
undercurrent.
think he's hopeless at all. All of the bad guys get it in the end.
That is true.
They get eaten by alligators and all kinds of wonderful things happen to them. Yes, no, the bad guys, that's what's great about his books is that the bad guys always get it.
Yeah, but he always emphasizes, I love it because I'm mean. He always emphasizes the darker side of people. Always.
Sure.
Yeah.
But none of those people win in the end. It's always the hero.
They might lose an arm to a shark, but they usually survive. Yeah, they usually survive. Okay, Erica, for Museum of Unusual Occurrence, talk to us about psychics.
Sure.
And I'm totally into psychics. And I mean, again, I think your research in this book was, we know you do great research, but for reasons not worth explaining, in the 1800s, in the area, the period with which I'm really familiar, 1850s, 1860s, psychic seances were a very legitimate thing. There
Absolutely.
were women in Georgetown in D.C. I think they were a mother and a daughter called the Witches of Georgetown, and it wasn't a slur. They were the top dogs when it came to doing seances. Mary Todd Lincoln participated in many, many seances, thinking that she could reach her son, the young one who died tragically at a very young age. I think there's a rumor that Abraham Lincoln finally, but it used to be a legitimate thing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So spiritualism was a sect of Christianity, and it popped up in the mid to late 1800s, particularly after the Civil War, when so many people had, lost loved ones, and they wanted a way to contact them. And so these seances popped up. They were very much a kind of kitchen table affair, which is also interesting, because spiritualism was very much kind of the pastors or the leaders were women, which was unusual at the time, and also caused some animosity between other kind of sects of Christianity. But yeah, no, absolutely. People genuinely believed. Arthur Conan Doyle genuinely believed, which is interesting because Sherlock Holmes is known to be such a man of reason, and he rejects all supernatural explanations. But no, Conan Doyle he had seances at his own home. He had a very public falling out with Houdini over them. Houdini actually went on tour trying to prove that these seances and other contacts with the dead were fake. And I make a quick joke about it in the book because I can't think of anything more boring than going to see Houdini, and instead of magic tricks, he gives you a lecture about how all of these, he kind of proves how these tricks are done in terms of knocking on walls and things like that. So yeah, no, it really was. The people were genuine believers. And I tried really hard the book not to poke fun at this because I do think that I understand the impulse, right? I understand the impulse with wanting to have. You
participated in some, right?
I went to a performance of a seance, which was very neat. It was advertised as a performance here in Knoxville at a historic home called the Mabry Hazen House. Okay. They have them in October, and they're a lot of fun. They're a real hoot.
Okay, Lauren first, and then David. Communicating with the afterlife, the other world? Yes, no, maybe?
No. But you know what you made me think of is the Winchester House. Have any of you guys toured the Winchester House?
I've seen the movie. I have not toured the house.
So it's in California. A woman of the Winchester family, they made all this money from the guns. She built this house and would have these seances. But it was the same thing. She would go to church. She was a big part of the community, but believed in the spiritual realm. And so if you go tour this house, it's just the weirdest house. There's all these rooms and add-ons, and she just kept adding it on as the spirits would tell her to build the house. And so I got to do a tour at night because it's haunted and everything, and you're crawling through these corridors, and they're telling you all the stories. It's really fascinating.
I'm putting that one on my list. David?
Yeah. So what would it mean if they were right?
One of the reasons I asked.
No, I mean, what would it mean, Erica, if all of these people are right? Yeah. And people are trying to communicate with us from the afterlife, what would that mean?
Well, I mean, I feel like what the mediums would show is that there's scientific proof, that this is scientific proof of an afterlife. And so that our earthly existence is temporary and that we should be more focused on our spiritual existence. And if if you read interviews with people who live in Casadaga, they very much are focused on, how would I word it? Benevolent lives, like lives about, giving and helping others. And, they're not at all concerned about money and things like that. So I think that is what it would show. It would show that our time here is fleeting. And so let's not focus on the wrong things, perhaps.
Okay. So
I always wonder, I do wonder though, everybody that dies isn't a good person. So in the afterlife, are they still not good people? Do they have some transformations? I'm just curious. I don't know.
Well, for my next book, I'm researching, for the next in the series, I'm researching near-death experiences. And that is covered, because most people who report having glimpsed the afterlife and come back, say they have a cardiac arrest or something like this, they describe, the vast majority describe a calming presence, a bright light, a feeling of being at peace with the world, or having their life flash before their eyes. But some people do report absolute anguish and that they really sort of realize the mistakes in their life. So
we have a family friend, priest, John Malone, great guy. And a few years ago, he told us we had to stop doing this because we would sit him down and torture him with questions, David, like, okay, let's see. I was going to name the person, but I won't. So-and-so gets married and divorced 3 times, goes to heaven, hopefully, and the ex-husbands are there. Who she hang out with? and yeah, they're not all good people. Okay, so I don't know. I like to hold out the possibility of these things. And as some people know, my older sister Katie, a wonderful person, died many years ago. Sometime after she died, and I'm going to say it very carefully, I had a conversation with her. And it wasn't a dream. It was, and I honestly can't remember how it came about, but I had a conversation with her that was bright as day, and I know where she was, I know where I was, and I can remember the conversation. And that, I don't know what that is, but it was some power that said they need to have this conversation. So I'm all in. I am all in. Can we, since we won't have a lot of time to spend on your book about poetry, but I noticed, Erica, reading the Museum of Unusual Occurrence, your poetry chops were showing. Was that fun? I mean,
I was about to use that word. Yes, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. The only challenge is that I had to use poetry that where I didn't have to worry about any copyright. I didn't want to deal with that in any way, shape, or form. But I could still incorporate some of my favorites. And I made reference to poets that I didn't quote in the book. So yeah, I had the idea for this book in October 2020. So kind of height of the pandemic. Wow. I was 8 months pregnant. And I was watching a Halloweenish movie every night, including Winchester, Lauren. That was on my list.
Excellent.
And I just had this idea. I thought the next book I write, I wanted to kind of have this tone. I wanted to have this kind of quirky, eerie tone. And I'm going to include some of my favorite things. I'm going to include poetry. I'm going to include Museum of Curiosities. I hadn't left the house in way too long. And I thought, I just want to write a book where I'm in a space that I enjoy. So yeah, in some ways, I just threw all of my favorite things into this book.
It shows. And it is that joyful is a word I would use with that. As dark as the story is, it is joyful in many ways. It was just absolutely fascinating. It's a great whodunit. You keep us going for a long time. And total surprise. Did you know the ending when you wrote the book? So I should have said this, but it's really kind of a whodunit. How does this woman figure out why did this body show up in her museum? Who killed this person? Those kinds of things. But did you know the ending when you wrote it?
I did not. No, I kind of always write based on instinct and what I think the characters would do. And my first drafts are an absolute disaster. I mean, complete messes. So somewhere usually, if I'm lucky, around the halfway mark, I'll be able to see where it's going. Sometimes it's very late in the process and I have to rewrite almost the whole story. But I just kind of trust that my instincts will kick in. They don't always, but most of the time they do.
I forget, are you a seat of the pantser or are you a spreadsheet?
No. I feel like when I imagine real writers, I imagine the spreadsheets, I imagine the outlines, the murder boards. Yeah. But I don't. I just sit down mostly with a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and sort of just write and see where it goes.
It's one of a series, right? This is the first in a series. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is the first in a series. Again, I was kind of just returning to my favorite things. When I started really reading mysteries in my 20s, it was Sue Grafton. It was, I love Sarah Grant's Claire DeWitt series. It's one of my favorites. That might have been in my 30s. Who else? Shannon Ivanovich. I just was sort of, I really liked the characters existing for longer than one book. And so I was kind of returning to that impulse. I wanted to write characters that I could live with for a while.
So will we go back to the same town? Will we?
Definitely going to go back to the same town, focusing on some different supernatural phenomena. I should say my protagonist is a skeptic, which also makes it really fun because she doesn't believe in anything. So she's kind of always at odds with everyone else.
Yeah, I was taking notes as I was reading it. And she's such a skeptic, and these great lines would just pop up. It doesn't matter you don't know who these people are. Ernest Towers was a cheat. T. Emanuel Scott was a cheat. I mean, she's got an edge about all the people in this quirky, wonderful town. But they kind of get to her. They
do. That happens in small towns. I'm from a small town, and there's this sort of you're frustrated with your neighbors, and you need your neighbors at the same time.
Absolutely. So. Tell us a little bit more about the main characters, and I'm going to use their nicknames, Allie and Mary, because I can't pronounce the names that you gave them, but there's a great story about how you named them. But tell us about the main characters.
Sure. Well, as you said, Allie's raising her little sister. After her father dies, the museum is willed to her, which is in some ways unfortunate because she doesn't like all of these curiosities. She doesn't like all of the exhibits that she thinks are in some ways fraudulent. So she's in the process, finally kind of embraces this new way of life, and she's in the process of trying to turn it into more of a research institution. She admires the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. And then, of course, she wakes up one day and there's a body in one of her exhibits. So her plans are derailed. And Mary is her younger sister. She is, in some ways, she is much more appropriate person to run the museum. She's a much more appropriate person to run the museum. She loves her hometown. She loves Wendell. She loves its Gothic sensibility. She loves the museum. But she's a teenager and also quite impulsive, which gets her into some trouble.
You totally captured the teenage vibe. Totally.
Good.
Absolutely great. Okay. It's fabulous. Okay. Give us the CNN headlines version of your latest book of poetry, which just fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you. So A Buyer's Guide to the Afterlife, it comes out in just about 1 month. And this actually started as sort of an intellectual project and then became more personal. It was responding to archival prints from the American Museum of Natural History.
And let me interrupt. Yeah, how did you happen to start looking at archival prints from the Museum of Natural History?
It sounds so fancy, and then my explanation is going to really make it sound a lot less fancy. Yeah, so let's bring it down. There was a set of these, 100 of them, at a bookstore in Atlanta on clearance for 75% off, and I absolutely bought them. I had to have these, and I hung them up all over my apartment, and they were beautiful. And then fast forward about 5 years, I sort of writing about them and reading more about these the essays that accompanied them. So a lot of them are about kind of the discovery of new species, sort of in the 1500s, that I found really fascinating. And then in my mind, I was contrasting that with this idea that we might be on the verge of a mass extinction event, and the contrast between people being so excited about all of these new animals to a time when a lot of people don't care. They don't care that we're losing all of these species. And so it was a sobering kind of contrast. And then when I had my beautiful son, Arthur, I was thinking about all these complicated things in terms of what does it mean to start a family. And thankfully, he is so interested in nature, even more so than me. He's fascinated by bugs and insects.
Awesome. Did you get him his own snake yet? Does he have his own snake yet?
No, he doesn't have his own snake yet. He's been asking for an aquarium. He's been really lobbying hard for an aquarium.
Usually the critters in the aquariums, we've had every pet animal, creature known to, the world. And the ones in the aquarium usually stay in them. Not always. If the kids don't keep the lid on there, strong enough. I thought about you last week when the pictures of RFK Jr. wrangling those poor snakes at Dr. Oz's house. Do you see this?
I did not. I missed this.
That shows good judgment on your part because it was viral everywhere else. He's at Dr. Oz's house last weekend, I guess it was. and they see two snakes on the patio. So RFK Jr. has a weird relationship with a lot of animals, a bear, a whalehead, something else, decides that he's going to save the day. And he grabs these two snakes by their tails, essentially.
Oh, no.
Gets them out. And it turns out they were non-venomous, but still, I felt badly for the snakes because it was a very awkward, there was no compassion.
They don't want to be carried by their tails.
No, they don't. You got to let your kid have any animal they want. It's the best thing. We're going to start and end the show with animals, Lauren, because they're so great. Okay, so when will the next in the series come out?
My deadline is July 31st, and then I think I'm trying, Torie.
You're another one that doesn't sleep. Wow.
That is true. I would like more sleep. Maybe when I open my Museum of Oddities, I can have a little room in the back for napping.
You could, maybe because I feel like I know you because we've had you on a few times, but the research that Allie starts to do on some of the exhibits she's thinking about, I thought to myself, Erica is sitting there thinking, okay, that could be really fun. It could be really fun. The one on the plague, let's be really respectful of what happened, but let's really understand that. I think you would have a blast.
I agree. And
think of the book clubs you would have.
Oh, I would have so many book clubs.
Yeah. Fabulous. All right. You got to come back with the next book. You absolutely have to come back with the next book. We are really, really thrilled with this one. The Museum of Unusual Occurrence. As usual, great art, great cover art.
I agree. Really absolutely. Beautiful cover art.
Everybody, we are back in a couple of weeks with Bruce Feiler, who I got to meet a few weeks ago at the Gold Coast Book Fair in Oyster Bay, Long Island. That's when we got to get you on their list, Eric. It's a really, really fun book fair. He is a best-selling author several times over, and he hates this, but he's kind of like Oprah and Dr. Phil, and I don't know what else rolled up into one. But he's got a book out. It's called A Time to Gather, How Ritual Created the World and How It Can Save Us. He's fabulous. Gayle, everybody at Wonderland Books, thank you very much. Jeffrey Katz, great to meet you. And thanks everybody for listening. And we will see you in a couple weeks.